Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has landed in Mumbai to begin his multi-day visit to India, which includes a meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday in New Delhi. Joining us here at the Print, we have Stéphane Dion, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada, a long-term Liberal Party leader, and most recently Canada's ambassador to France and Monaco. Thank you, Mr. Dion, for joining us here at the Print. You've been about almost 3 decades in various roles as a politician and then later an ambassador, and you've seen the Canadian-Indian relationship under multiple prime ministers. What really do you see was the issue in 2023 that seemed to crater ties between India and a G7 country like Canada that had, a large Indo-Canadian population, has large investments in India? What really was the fundamental reason for such a break?
I think from the Indian perspective, it was the sense that Canada was ambiguous about Indian unity, and Canada was saying, not at all. We are supporting a united India, it's key for us. And from the Kenyan perspective, the very serious concern that some services in India interfered in Canada in a way to interrupt the life of a fellow citizen, a Canadian fellow citizen, which was a very, very grave accusation. And there was a sense that the government of India was not cooperating enough to go to the bottom of this issue. So that was a very serious disagreement between the two countries. But now our two leaders, Mr. Carney, Mr. Modi, they want to go ahead positively and to be sure that we'll have no negative aspects in our relationship, because we have so many things to do together for trade, for the economy, for geostrategic security. So India and Canada needs to be strong partners, and we are determined to make sure that this visit of Prime Minister Carney will help for that, will be key for that.
Right. And from your answer, you said that India had this perception that Canada was there was a certain ambiguity in Canada's position on Indian unity, and this stems from the fears of the growth in Sikh separatist views within Canada. Uh, how do you see, or how strong do you think that India's position with regards to, its understanding of the amount of influence Sikh separatists have in Canadian politics? Right? Where do you think that misunderstanding lay?
The misunderstanding, I think it's because in Canada, it's a free country. It's like India, it's a democracy. And so people may have different views. They are not necessarily the same view than the government. But the government itself was not ambiguous and will never be. United India is key for Canada, it's key for the world. And we have no ambiguity about that. I cannot tell you that 40 million of Canadians agree with what I have said. Some of them may want India to break up, as many Canadians want Canada to break up, by the way. We have our own separatists in Canada. It's allowed to be separatist in Canada, but the government of Canada has no ambiguity at all about the support we have for a united India.
Right. And the visit by Prime Minister Carney is considered to be a reset of sorts, and it comes with the pressures that Ottawa is facing with its own southern neighbor, the US, when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to jokes on Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. So, how really do you see this reach to India, this outreach to India by Carney, Prime Minister Carney, working out? Where do you think are the areas where India and Canada should focus on sort of deepening their engagement and partnership?
I have no doubt that even if we had a president of the United States more, I would say, normal, Canada would come in India anyway. Prime Minister Carney would be very willing to improve the relationship with India anyway. But it's an additional motivation. The US today are not so reliable. Canada knows that we'll always need to have a strong relationship with the US, but we want to be less dependent. And for that, we need to strengthen our relationship with Europe, with South America, with Africa, with Indo-Pacific, and key relationship with the biggest democracy of the world, with India.
Right. Now, the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, you were the Liberal Party leader when he first stood for elections in 2008. You served under his government in 2015 and then as his ambassador. And Prime Minister Trudeau has had a very difficult relationship with India, maybe coming from a point of where he believed he was showing respect to Indian culture and was very willing to what happened in 2023. How do you, put the Trudeau era of 9 years within Canadian politics and the larger framework of ties with India?
I think he was very unhappy with that. He wanted so much to have a strong relationship with India. He came in your country and he wanted to show how much he respects your different habits and culture, and he wanted to say how much he wants to have a strong relationship with India. It's a big disappointment for him that it did not go well. So I'm sure today he must be very happy to see that Mr. Carney is coming in India and is willing to have a very positive relationship with your country.
Right. And there's one big shift in something that Prime Minister Makani said about his belief in the Indian relationship, and that is looking to expand in defense and strategic affairs, which is new. How do you see the sort of growing strategic ties, in these sensitive areas, be it critical minerals, defense? How do you see India in that role?
We want to make sure that Canada and India are cooperating on these issues. You mentioned critical minerals. As you know, the country that has almost a monopoly on it today is China. And that's a concern for India and for Canada. We need to bring the resource to the market. And Canada have a lot of these resources, and we have a lot of expertise, and India as well. So why not to work together, not to replace China, but at least to make sure that China is not the only player.
Right. And my last question, and this is sort of going forward because Prime Minister, we've had the history of various Canadian Prime Ministers making this opening to India. Prime Minister Chrétien, Martin, Prime Minister Harper is still considered a good friend of India. And then, of course, Prime Minister Trudeau. It seemed that the Indo-Canadian ties at a bilateral level was mostly Prime Minister driven, or the personality of the individual leaders on both sides. How can this relationship be made sustainable? What is the kind of institutions that we need to build to keep the relationship sustainable?
I think the business, the academia should strengthen the relationship. We have so many Canadians of Indian origin and other Canadians that have no Indian origin but really willing to work with India, like me. There are so many things to do. Invite me. I am professor of university. I would be pleased to have more relationship with the Indian universities. We have so many colleagues who understand this part of the world. Canada is very accustomed to have a lot of Canadians. We have strong relationship with India, family relationship with India. So I think it's not. You're right. It's not only an issue between leaders and between governments. It's people-to-people relationships.
And how do you see that? What is the best way to build that? What would you think in 10 years' time? Where do you think India-Canada ties would be? Do you think that this reset will help make India-Canada ties sustainable and stable?
At the end of the visit of Prime Minister Carney, you, the journalist, will see the results in terms of agreements. Can you follow these agreements? Can you make sure that over the months you will see progress? And if there is no progress, to put these leaders accountable. I think that's the key point. We signed so many agreements around the world, India and Canada. Can we make sure that they will not stay on paper, that they will be implemented and will give good results for the people?
Right, that was my last question. Thank you so much, Mr. Dion, for joining us here at The Print.
So it was a great pleasure.